Richard, what is your approach to eschatology, the doctrines of last things, the final destiny of human beings individually, and of humanity as a whole, and perhaps even also of the entire earth and of the entire universe?
Well, I have no doctrine at all of the future of the Earth or of the universe, and I don't think that there is such a doctrine in Christian teaching. There's a doctrine about an end to the present order of things for human beings, and that might involve them living on a new Earth or a new order in that Earth, and of course, the apostles, first disciples, expected that to happen very soon, that there would be a second coming of Jesus, and this would happen. And of course, it didn't. It hasn't yet, that is to say. But it's there that simply that got this the way we live now on this earth is going to come to an end, and it will come to an end by the visible manifestation of Christ. That is extremely vague how it could happen, and I have no view any more than that about that, and I don't think any Christian is required to have any more view except that the present order is not everlasting and that God has not yet brought about the new order, and there's a good reason for this, because he is waiting for us to repent and change our ways, because if he comes these days, he will find a lot of unsatisfactory people, and he wishes to come to a world that is better.
So there are two ways.
But as regards individuals, and that is where there are more substantial doctrines.
Let's just deal with the current order for a second, then go to the individuals, because there are two ways to think about the putative return of Jesus. One, as you've stated, I believe, is that God is waiting for humanity to improve to a point where it's worth the Son, the second person in the Trinity, God, to come to earth, where earth could be worthy of it. The other view, which is perhaps more prevalent, is that Christ will come back when humanity is going to destroy itself unless Jesus comes back to save humanity from utter destruction.
No, I don't think that can be regarded the way you state it as a Christian doctrine. He's coming to initiate a new order and not to save the present order.
Not to save it, but if the present order would continue, humanity would be destroyed. So Jesus has to create a new order by force.
Yes, but it's a new order in which people go on living forever. And he will create scriptural words, a new heaven and a new earth. Now, I don't know what the new heaven is supposed to amount to. I mean, heaven was simply the surrounding atmosphere, really, as far as the average Jewish person thought about it. I mean, heaven meant, it's the same word, uranos, kaidon, for the sky as for heaven in the sense of the heaven that people go to. And I think that causes a lot of confusion. Well, my hypothesis, and it's only my guess, is that the reason why he hasn't appeared so far is he is waiting for us waiting for the world to be converted, because he told the apostles to go and preach his message to the whole world. But of course, the whole world hasn't heard that message, let alone in a serious way, for 2 millennia. And perhaps, that's only my suggestion, perhaps God is hoping that one day they will all hear and return. But that's only I have really no doctrine about this matter, and I don't think the church has a doctrine about this matter, about when and how he will manifest at this end of the present order and what it will consist in.
Well, if he's waiting for the human beings to make a good and decent world, everything that I read, he still has a long wait.
Yes, well, that's quite right, quite so.
Let's deal with individual,
Yeah.
the eschatology for the individual in terms of the classical heaven, hell, purgatory, those kinds of areas where the church does have a more fully formed doctrine.
Yeah. Yes, well, at death, there are different views in the church. The view of many Protestants is that at that time, well, there were some Protestants, is as it were, they cease to exist until a general resurrection of everybody, when the wicked are sent to an eternal hell and the good are taken to eternal heaven. But the majority view among Protestants would be that when we die, our soul is still kept alive and reunited with the body in the general resurrection of everybody. But the Protestant view is that our fate, as it were, is decided at death. If we have lived a good human life, then we go one way, or enough of a good human life to be penitent for the wrong, and we go one way, and otherwise we go the other way. But then the Catholic comes along and introduces the doctrine of purgatory, because, I mean, they really saw not everybody has, as it were, formed themselves when they die. And it's absurd to think that God is going to take some of these people who have a bit of us, have been good a bit in some ways, straight to heaven. They're just not fitted for it. So, purgatory, which only came into Catholic thinking in the 8th, 9th centuries, was thought of as a sort of antechamber to heaven. It's where people were sent to who had a bit of, were ultimately destined to heaven. They were on the right track, but they had to be purged. They had to be undergo various purgation in order to make them fitted for heaven. But the Orthodox, some of them believe that. Others of them believe, and I'm in the latter category, others of them believe that our fate is not entirely such, not for all of us, entirely settled at death, and that we do have a chance in the afterlife to form the character that we haven't formed on earth, and so to make ourselves fitted either for heaven or for hell. And that is accepted as a possible view by the Orthodox Church, and I accept that. That is to say, our fate is only settled at the general resurrection, when we are reunited with the body.
So, how would the post-death, pre-general resurrection occur? What would be the characteristics that one would need to go through to have some transformative events during that period of time?
I don't know, and there is no official view about this matter. all I'm saying is that the Catholic view, officially, is that our fate is settled at death, even though some of us have to be purged in some way or other in order to get to heaven. And one of the two, that is one of the views open to orthodoxy. The other view is that we still have an opportunity to form, to act so as to determine our final destiny. Not all of us, perhaps, but some of us who have unformed characters before the general resurrection. And I adopt that view for the obvious reason that a lot of people die without a formed character of any sort. Yeah, but I mean, that's as precise as I can get.
Look,
Because
that's fine. But at some point, there is a final determination. And,
yes.
And I've always been disturbed by a final determination, especially if it's a negative one towards hell in whatever form it is, in the sense that could it ever be the case that just deserts or a fair result of temporal sin or temporal lack of sufficient character would result in an infinite punishment for a finite transgression?
I have argued elsewhere that when people make bad choices and go on making bad choices, they gradually make a worse and worse character. And when they do that, they can eventually be in a stage where they are not morally sensitive. They don't recognize the difference between good and evil. There's an interesting paragraph in Solzhenitsyn's book, The Gulag Archipelago, where he comments about some of the interrogators whom he encountered, that some of them were sort of sensitive a bit to the good, and others seem to have lost that sensation, simply had no concept of morality at all. So they have, it's not, they're going to hell, whatever that amounts to, is not, as it were, a punishment for what they have done, but is something which they have chosen to be, because by their choices they have made themselves insensitive to the good, and so they can't recognize it and can't choose to do anything else unless God were to force on them a character which they had voluntarily chosen not to have, and that would be an imposition. You don't need to believe that there is a God in order to go to heaven or hell, but you do need to try to do the good. And if it comes to your notice that there is a God, that will obviously include pleasing him. But if you have no conception of the good, you're simply not fitted for heaven, and you've banished yourself. But what will happen to them? I don't go along with, if you take the biblical metaphors literally, there are burning flames involved. It's physical pain. But Augustine remarks, though he did believe that the real punishment, or however you phrase it, is damnation, and that means to damnum is loss. Loss of God is the real punishment, even though at the point of sensuous, the sensory punishments were also there. I don't see any need to believe in the sensory punishments at all. They may be, but I don't see any particular creedal reason to believe this. they have banished themselves from God. And what God will not do is give them a choice, any more choice, because he knows they will make the bad choice because they've eliminated the conception of the good. And bad choices are on earth a matter of hurting other people, but he's not going to allow them to hurt other people in this state. And therefore, they're bound to be unhappy because what they want to do, they can't. They want to hurt other people, and they won't be any other people to hurt. I think he might well give them the choice, if they so want, simply to be eliminated. That would be indeed loss of God. If you look at the New Testament, the teaching of Jesus carefully, he often talks of the bad being thrown into the fire which burns forever. But if a fire burns forever, then anything you throw in it will not exist anymore. Only in one passage is he quoted by St. Matthew of saying that the fire will burn the people forever, but the other passages don't suggest that. So that is my view of hell.
Broadly, there are two extreme alternatives to the traditional ever-burning hellfire. On the one extreme, as you've described, is annihilationism, where the incorrigibly wicked are destroyed, they're not tortured forever. And the other extreme is universal salvation, which some Christian theologians, scholars have been more amenable to, I think, of recent times, where ultimately all human beings from all time are all saved through some post-mortem process.
Well, I don't accept that view, because I think that God gives us a choice of what sort of person we are to be. And some people, apparently, people Solzhenitsyn admit anyway, seem to, and other people whom we hear of and their lifestyle we hear of, seem to have totally eliminated their conception of the good by doing each time really bad actions and even more bad actions, so that it didn't, they're not doing them with a bad conscience. They've lost a conscience. And if you don't allow people to do that, then you have destroyed their autonomy. If in the end everyone's going to be saved, what's the point of the process if you don't let them choose their destiny? In a different episode, I quoted the idea of the parallel of a suitor. God can, like a suitor, asking the beloved to marry him. If the beloved refuses once, twice, 3 times maybe, okay, the suitor can ask again. But if the suitor asks an infinite number of times, that is an imposition. That is refusing to recognize the autonomy of the beloved, and likewise with God. So I think people have the opportunity finally to reject God, and so I don't go along with the everyone will be saved, but I do go along with the view that everyone will have plenty of opportunity to take good choices, and in the end they will separate themselves into those who will take enough choices for God to give them the benefit of the doubt.
On the happier side, just a few words, what can we say about heaven? I know it's very little. I guess my question is, what would we do for all eternity? I mean, I love, for example, Mahler's Second Symphony, but after a while it does get boring.
Yes, I think only the saints will be happy in heaven, because you often read these people who say, I don't want to live forever. And what they mean is they don't want to live the sort of life they live on earth, being the sort of people they are forever. And that is surely comprehensible. But the saint is one who wishes to do, tries to do what is good, and wants to go on forever, helping other people on earth, and go on forever coming to understand the goodness of God. The saints traditionally intercede for us before God, and that's just, as it were, one example of how they might help us on earth. But the various descriptions of heaven, which are few, goodness knows, by both in the New Testament and subsequently, imply first that it is a communal activity. Augustine made the remark that heaven being compared to a city shows that we do things together in it. It's not of the solitary to the solitary. And the picture of heaven is in the book of Revelation and many other places, is that the worship of God is a central activity. And we come to know more and more about God and more about what he's like and what he's done. And it's a perpetual progress. I think Origen said that more and more and more getting, and God being infinitely good has infinite good aspects to be learnt about. And if God chooses, he can give us plenty of good things to help other people with. But who knows beyond that? But it will be a choice where a situation where we have chosen to be saints, and therefore there's no point in God tempting us in any way. We have formed our character, and so there will be no pain, but plenty of opportunity for developing our understanding of the good and our understanding of God, and being able in some way to help others who are not in that situation.